Tonight, I'm going to be talking about utilities, custom utilities for logging software. These are all things that I have written. I'm not gonna talk about too many of them. I will. Let me just see if I can do this. Get this right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my background, why I developed some of these things. They're mostly based around what's called ADIF, which is the Amateur Data Interchange Format, and I'll be talking more about that. And the four programs I'm going to highlight tonight are ADIF to CSV, which is a conversion to a spreadsheet format, a county conversion program for helping you out, especially in the state QSO parties, splitting an ADIF log by transmitted QTH, which is helpful if you want to upload your log to Logbook of the World and you operate it from multiple locations. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about the CQDX Marathon and the conversion program I wrote for that. So I've been licensed almost 49 years. It'll be 49 years this is December. And I've had my same call sign since September 1978. I just have never felt an incentive to change it, even after we moved from Massachusetts to Colorado. I was exposed to my first computer in actually my sophomore year of high school in 1979. We had a room with a few AR-19 terminals that were connected over a 300 baud modem interface to the technical high school where the mainframe was. And if you wrote a program, it was saved on paper tape and then read back in. And basically, that's how I got my feet wet. I think a year later, they finally bought some Z80 based Zenith, sort of like IBM PC precursors, which you had to boot up off a floppy drive, and all you had was access to BASIC, but you could at least save the program on a floppy drive, which made things easier. I went to college and graduated with a degree in electrical engineering, so I didn't really do any. I didn't go to college specifically for the purpose of learning programming. I went specifically for the purpose of doing electronic design, figuring that I could pick up any programming I needed to do on the side. And I've been employed in high tech since September 1986, worked in a variety of fields, and I am scheduled to be retired officially next April 12th. I was originally planning on doing it this year, but for some reasons, I decided to postpone it for a year, and I'll be happy to be done with that and have more time for ham radio related activities. Primarily, the software I use is C and a little bit of C++. I've also got experience with Perl, HTML for writing web pages, JavaScript, CSS. Pascal, I think, was the second language I learned after BASIC. I've never taken a programming course. I'm pretty much all self-taught. And nowadays, it's actually fairly easy to pick up a new language just by using Google searches telling you how to do certain things. So some parts of my code, I've been able to at least get a head start from various sites on the internet that have already kind of been through these hurdles and know how to solve the particular problems. So you might want, why I've gone and sort of developed these things. One of the main reasons is to kind of automate tasks that you're going to do multiple times. I really am not a big fan of doing something and then doing it all over again by hand and repeating that ad infinitum. If you can write a program that'll give you repeatable results and more or less remove the burden from you, it'll avoid errors as well. So that's all useful. I've been intrigued by learning new languages, especially working with the Windows GUI framework. I didn't originally start out that way. I decided I wanted to get into that area, not for professional reasons, just for personal reasons, to be able to distribute these programs, to be able to make changes easily and debug them easily. I figured, and once I wrote these programs, I figured, well, if I'm using them, maybe someone else will want to use them as well. And so I put them up on the internet. I think I've had a website since maybe 1997 or maybe before. I don't remember how long it's been. It's been a while. And if other people use the programs, then I get feedback. It may be used to improve things, or maybe there's some feature I didn't think of which I added on, and I've always made them free. I never wanted to charge for software. It's the same thing when I buy baseball tickets and go to the game. If I invite someone with me, I never make them pay for their ticket. I just go to enjoy the experience. I've also done some point some point programs for certain people. For example, Dr. Rick Dorsch, NE8Z/HC1MD, was collecting contest logs from some of the folks down in Ecuador, and they were in various formats, and he wanted to upload it in the logbook of the world, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So, he and I have conversed multiple times. So he says that's something I could do. And since I already had some templates for that sort of work, it was relatively easy to modify the programs to do the conversions for him. And I got rewarded by a surprise bag of Ecuadorian coffee one time. So that was a nice perk. So I'm going to be talking a lot about this thing called ADIF, which is the Amateur Data Interchange Format. It's a standard, an open standard for exchanging data between different pieces of ham radio logging software from different vendors. It was originally proposed at the 1996 Dayton Hamvention. A year later, it was pretty much adopted by most software publishers. Starting in 2002, they really done a lot of work in terms of expanding the standard to allow new types, new values, new fields, and that sort of stuff. I am a voting member on the ADIF committee, so when there is a change to the spec, there's about, I think, maybe 17 or 20 of us that get to approve or disapprove the changes as we see fit. There is usually discussion that goes on before that. I don't remember exactly how long this sort of voting process has been going on, but it's been going on for many years. So one thing is to sort of part of the changes are when new modes are added, like when FT8 and FT4 came around, we had to approve changes to the standard to allow those modes. There's some sort of borderline ham radio / internet protocols, data protocols, which we've had mixed feelings on. I don't know if they've really been put forward or not, but basically the schedule is very the specification is fairly rigidly defined, so it's very easy to implement and ensure that the data you're sending to the other program is going to be able to be read. Why might you want to use ADIF? It's for example, if you've used the contest logging software and you want to import those QSOs into your everyday logging software, WSJTX, which is used for FT4 and FT8, generates an ADIF file automatically every time you make a new QSO. And so maybe that's the way you import into your general everyday logging software. Maybe there's a more automated way to do it. Some software does have that capability. The one I'm using does not, but I'd actually prefer to do it by hand for reasons I don't want to go into. Another use of ADIF would be to upload your QSOs from your log to the ARRL logbook of the world, which is a repository for everyone's QSOs to participate. And what the software does is it it automatically matches up the QSO data if your contact has been uploaded and the corresponding contact on the other side has been uploaded, and the times and the call sign and everything match, then that'll be considered a confirmation, and those confirmations can be applied to awards like DXCC, worked all zones, islands on the air, that sort of thing. EQSL is another site like that. That's used by some of the CQ awards. I think County Hunters maybe uses EQSL. There's another site called Club Log, which is sort of similar to Logbook of the World. It doesn't have the confirmations themselves aren't. I wouldn't say that they're not approved for award submissions. However, there's a lot of ways to do log analysis in the system. A lot of the expeditions will upload their logs either in real time or as the expedition is going along, and you can go and you can look up to see if you're in the log, and when the expedition is over and you've uploaded your log, the QSO's log will be matched up, and it makes it very easy to submit what's called an online QSO request, which basically just says I'm going to transfer money from my PayPal account to the QSL manager, and they're going to send me QSL cards. So it avoids the whole mailing the envelope with the dollar bills folded inside and wondering whether they got to the destination and that sort of thing. There are QSL printing services like QDURE, which is based in Spain, you can design a QSL card, graphical, a QSL card with pictures and whatever formats you want. And you can upload your ADIF log to that site, and they will print QSL cards with the QSL information printed directly on the card. That's great for if you're doing a lot of contest operations or a de-expedition who just wants to basically confirm all the remaining QSOs in the log without having to do a lot of work. ADIF is also useful for switching from one logging program to another. When I started out, when I got on the air for my own place finally in 2007, I forget which software I was using, but I think I switched twice before I settled on the logging software I'm using now. So I was able to use ADIF to export from the old program and then import that QSO data into the new program. And so that obviously saves a lot of retyping. De-expeditions use the ADIF format for statistics sometimes, for band mode breakdowns of QSOs, for QSOs by continents. So for example, you can see how many Europeans you work compared to North American operators. And you can also, because it's a plain text format, you can manipulate parts of your own log if you want to export. Say add a note to every QSO or add a note to certain QSOs, then you import it back in. Those notes will get imported into your logbook as like QSO notes. So there's lots of things you can do with ADIF. It's a text format. It's human readable. You can look at it and you can understand what the data is. Obviously it's formatted in such a way that, and I'm going to show you an example. It's formatted in such a way that can be read by computers. There's a header block at the top, and everything above everything which is considered the header is ignored by the program, is ignored by the importing program. And then there's an end of header indication, and that says the QSO data is coming. And QSO records are made up of a number of ADIF fields, including the name, the width, and the value. And then at the end of each QSO record is an end of record marker, and then the next QSO starts. And then when you get the last DOR, when you're all done, then the import is complete. So here's an example showing one QSO from, I think it's the first QSO in my log from 2023. So you can see the header information at the top. It was exported by DX4Win, version 9.09/1259. And there's the end of header marker. Now the QSO data starts. The order of the information in the QSO record is not important, but you'll see there's a date, a time, a call sign, a frequency. The DXCC was a numerical code, which was I don't know how many years ago that was developed, but basically each country has a numerical DXCC ID, and because I've been working with them for so long, I can tell you that Scotland is 279, and Alaska is 6, and Canada is 1, and European Russia is 54, and Asiatic Russia is 15. So each country has a unique DXCC identifier. In this particular record, it's a frequency in megahertz, which is 3.574 in a band of 80 meters. Having two pieces of information, having two pieces of data, which tell you the sort of the same thing, maybe seem redundant, but sometimes even in my situation logging, the frequency will not match the band, and then you got to figure out or go back and figure out what happened. I know I went through my log a year or so ago because it told me I had several sideband contacts on 30 meters, and what had happened was that I was on one of the digital modes, FT8 probably, looking up counties from stations, and I accidentally entered something into the logbook, and then I went back and deleted those. But in some cases, I actually did find mismatches between band and mode, and I had to go back and resolve those either based on what I had done sort of in the QSO before, the QSO after, or gone back to the DX cluster database to see what was happening around that time. So the first program I'm going to talk about is relatively simple. It's called ADIF to CSV, and what it does is it converts an ADIF file into a simple spreadsheet format, and that's useful because spreadsheets can be used to analyze the data any way you want. One use that I found for them is to take all my logbook QSOs and sort them by the number of times I've worked each country, so I can see that I've worked United States the most. And there's I think 2 or 3 countries in my log I've only ever worked once in my life. So it's interesting to sort of look at that data. Because it's a spreadsheet, you can do things like make pivot tables and I couldn't tell you how to make one, but if I need to make one, I go on Google and I Google pivot table, and it tells me the steps I need to use to make one. The headers in the table are determined by the ADIF field names and the cell data. Oh yeah, that's one thing I didn't talk about before. So let's go back. So the QSO record oops, wait a minute, that was the wrong thing. So the QSO date, this word here is called the ADIF field name, and then it's followed by a colon and the width of the field. So in this case, this is the value 2023-0101 is the field value, and so the width tells you how many characters that value is going to be. So for example, you can have these fields, butt up against each other with no blank space in between. You can have 40 blanks. It doesn't really matter because the field width tells you how many characters after that closing angle bracket are relevant for that particular field. So the table headers in this spreadsheet are determined by the ADIF field names, and I'll show you an example of this in a minute. And the cell data could be numerical or alphanumeric. So in this case, a cell containing the call sign would be alphanumeric, and it'd be like a text cell in your spreadsheet, whereas a field like the date would be treated as a numeric value. So it's a pretty simple graphical program. You click on the ADIF file button, you give it the name of the ADIF file that you want to convert, and you click on the CSV button, and I think by default this one actually uses it pre-populates the output name with the same name as the input file, just sticks a CSV on the end. You click on the convert button, and you get a message that says that 34 or how many records were converted. In this case, it's just one of the log files I think I had from South America, from Ecuador. I just pulled one off the top of the pile. So when you look at the final results, you'll see that the headers are the same as the field names. You see band call mode, QSO underscore date, time underscore on, RST received, RST sent, and then you'll see the data below that. So once you have this in a spreadsheet format, now you can sort by date. You can pick out, see how many times you worked a particular call sign, see how many QSOs you've made between the hours of 3 and 4 a.m. in the morning. Whatever you want to do with it. You've got a spreadsheet that's very easy to do some examination on. So let me see what this next one is. Yeah. So let's talk about the process a little bit. So I don't know when I wrote my first Windows graphical program. I think I was using a very old version of the Microsoft Visual Studio compiler. And there was a certain framework that was used to build the graphical part, which is called, I think, MFC, Mike Fox Charlie. There's a better framework now that I've sort of transitioned to, but I have some of the old programs that are written in the old format, some are in the new format. But as I've developed more programs, I've learned how to do certain things. And in fact, I've taken some of these programs and I actually debugged them mostly without the benefit of the Microsoft environment. I debugged them in my what I call my development environment, which is a Unix-based environment called Cygwin, which allows you to bring up a Unix shell and Unix tools and Unix compilers and debuggers for working on software. So I do a lot of the nitty-gritty, the functional part in there, and then I design a graphic interface around that. So let me tell you about county hunting. I'm not sure how many of you folks have tried to work all the 3,077 counties in the USA. In the fall of 2000, we were out at lunch one day at work, and for some reason, a couple of us decided to run down it wasn't a very steep hill, but we decided to run down a hill to get back to the office, and I tripped and sprained my ankle, and that pretty much kept me home for a few days. And I was sitting in front of the radio, tuning around the bands, and I ran into this net on the high end of 20-meter sideband where they were exchanging information like 2222222, and then a bunch of guys would get through, and then they go on to another station who was operating. It turns out these are the county hunters, and a big group of the county hunters were people that drove semi-tractor trailer trucks across the country, and they'd go through the counties at the interstates or the U.S. highways or whatever were pass through, and they'd get on the air, and if it was their turn to operate to get some time on the net, they could go out and give out that county. And then there's another group of people who drove around basically in their own cars, and put out counties that were sort of more off the beaten path. And what I realized is that by participating in this, or monitoring this net, and having a list of the counties I'd worked in the past, it was very easy for me to pick off a lot of counties in a short amount of time. So, for example, if you're working DX, like for DXCC, someone may go to a country like Togo and be there for two weeks, and hopefully get a chance or two to work that station. With the county hunters, you might work 10 or 20 or 30 counties in a single day. So it's a lot more fast paced. It also means that there's a pretty good opportunity to miss counties too if you're not at the radio at the exact right time. And in conjunction with that, a lot of states have what they call QSO parties. There were some that are state specific. There were some that are regional, like New England or the 7th area QSO party. And the exchanges are usually pretty simple. It's your RST and usually your state or a county abbreviation. County abbreviations are usually 3 to 5 characters long. For example, in the seven land QSO party, Yavapai, Arizona is abbreviated AZYVP. In the Tennessee QSO party, Clay County is just Clay. And in the Minnesota QSO party, Coochin County is abbreviated KOO. Now, if you go through the ATIF spec, there is no defined field or format for these county abbreviations. So if you want to import your contest log from the state QSO party into your general everyday log, and you want to have all the counties identified for you, well, it's not going to happen automatically because there's no ATIF field to do that transfer for you. And it's a lot of work to manually update all the QSOs by hand, especially if you've made, 100, 200, 1,000. Some county names are very similar to each other, whether like the county names themselves will be start with the same 3 letters, and the abbreviations will be slightly different. So it's very easy to make mistakes updating your logbook with these county names. So this program actually converts the county abbreviations into the actual ATIF county name format to import into your log. And the other benefit of it is it has a way to deal with county line operations. Now, some logging programs, some operators will operate from a county line, where they sit on the border between 2 different counties. During the contest, they give out both counties at the same time. And depending on what software you're using, that software may only have one line for the QSO, where you enter the call sign and you enter both county abbreviations on the same line. So now you've got one QSO with 2 counties associated with it. And what do? Well, if you copy the QSO outright and just change the second county from the first to the second county, what happens is that now the 2 QSOs have the same time and date, even including seconds, and a lot of repositories or even logbooks will reject those and count them as a duplicate QSO, even though they were made with different counties. So what this program does, it actually staggers the QSOs by I think a few seconds, which differentiates them enough so that most software will be able to import the 2 different and be able to import the QSO and give you credit in your logbook for 2 different counties. Oops, wait a minute, went the wrong way here. Hold on. Like I said, this is not my forte here. So the program has a couple of inputs. Takes the input is the ATIF file from the contest logging software you want to convert. In this case, I just happen to choose one from the Arizona QSO party from this year. The output file it's also an ATIF file, but you have to give it a different name to differentiate the 2, and you just select the state. I'll talk about the checkbox in a minute, but when you can click on the convert button, it shows you how many QSOs were converted and how many were written to the output file. So the add /m to mobiles option is for, so if some of the guys on the air will sign like K8UE/FLAG, and that might be because he was operating in Jeff was operating in Flagler County, Florida. And a lot of people will log the QSO as K8UE/FLAG, and that's actually probably not going to match up with his logbook if he submits his log to the logbook on the air, because the county you used and the county that he was sending was he was probably sending either just K8UE by itself or K8UE/mobile. So what the program will optionally do, it'll recognize these situations where the county name matches the quote portable part with the call sign, and it'll remove the portable part from the call sign and replace it with /m for mobile. So The other problem with the abbreviations, they can cause the QSO to be identified as the wrong country. For example, if WA4ABC operates with /FLAG, it's going to be interpreted as probably France, because I think that's FL is probably oh no, it's not France. It's going to be I don't know what country that would be, but it's not going to be the USA. So now your logbook has got a QSO with a country that's not the correct country for the call sign. So this program will strip out the portable part from the mobile call sign and stick an M on it. Another program I wrote was called to split ADIF log by transmitted QTH. So there's several situations where this happens. When a mobile station goes out and operates a state QSO party, transmits from a dozen counties, then wants to upload that log with the correct location information to Logbook of the World, you pretty much have to separate the QSOs by county in order to do that. Same thing with VHF rovers. They operate from several different grid squares. If you want to be able to upload those QSOs properly, then you're going to want to split out the QSOs you made into different files by grid square, and then using the correct station certificate in Logbook of the World, sign those QSOs with the correct grid square for each one. It automatically writes a separate ADIF file for each transmitted location based on what the transmitted location is. So if the rover or the mobile enters a county abbreviation or grid square, then that county abbreviation or grid square gets appended to the output file name for that particular county or grid square. So the ADIF fields that it's looking at in particular are called my_county. So CNTY is the ADIF field that is the state and county of the station you worked. My county is the state and county of the county you operated from. And similarly with grid square is the UCC grid square of the station you worked, and my grid square is the station the grid square you operated from. There's also corresponding my state field. I've never used that. There's no real reason for it. But so again, this takes an input file. All you need, and this happens to be one from N7N, who operated the 7th area QSO party from several locations in Nevada in 2018. You click on input, navigate to where the ADIF file is that you want to convert, and then click on split. And you can see in the output that it wrote different QSOs to each of these different files. I think of the files, I think it's Churchill, Eureka, Lander, Mineral, Nye, and White counties in Nevada. So then with your Logbook of the World software, you create a station certificate for Churchill County, Nevada, and you would sign those 20 QSOs and upload them, and you would do the same thing for the other counties. So you can't just sign the log. If you operate from all these different places, you just can't sign the log with one location and upload it because the information there is incorrect. And if someone thinks they worked you in White County and they download the ADIF report for their QSOs, and it says QSOs in Churchill County, but you logged them in White County. So it's very confusing. So it's much better if the log gets split up properly and then signed with the correct QTH for each one. The last one I'm going to talk about is the most complicated, and it's a way to convert your ADIF, your log file to the CQDX Marathon spreadsheet. So this is an annual program to work as many different countries and CQ zones during a single calendar year. It's been around since 2006. That year, the winner had combined countries and zones at 286. The very next year, he worked 289 countries in all 40 zones. So I guess what happened is you realize this is a competition and I better, work everything I can and not miss anything. It's got different operating classes, so it allows people who have, big stations to compete against other big stations. People with little stations like mine, which is just a single vertical antenna in the backyard and 100 watts, to compete against people in that same category. There's lots of awards based by mode, country, U.S. call area, and more. And the important thing about this award is that confirmations are not required. So you don't have to go through the hassle of trying to get QSO cards for all these stations you work during a given calendar year. This is the score sheet. You can all the yellow things or all the yellow fields are information you need to fill out. And as you can see, if you if you have no way to transfer the data from your logging program to this spreadsheet, it can be kind of a little bit of a drudgery to kind of type in each time you work in a new country, type in the QSO information. The stuff at the top, pretty much you fill in once and never have to change it again. But there's got to be a better way, because typing stuff in by hand, you're prone to make mistakes. You put the wrong band in. You screw up. The worst thing to do is screw up the call sign to, for example, instead of entering 3B8 CF, you enter 3B8 FC. That's obviously that's a busted call sign, and the logging check, some of the software does check for things like that. So you'll probably lose credit for that QSO. So in 2008, we had moved from Massachusetts. The program started in 2006. I was still in Massachusetts. 2007, I was only in the state for half the year. Didn't get back on the air until August of 2008. And so in August 2008, I thought I might as well just submit whatever I worked for the DX Marathon for that year. So I quickly kind of ginned up a command line program, which ran at the DOS prompt. It was really meant for people who use the DX for Win logging software. So you would right-click on the logbook window, and you'd save a comma separated value file, like a spreadsheet program. And then this command line program would read that, and it would generate another CSV, comma separated value spreadsheet type file with the information in the same order as in the score sheet. So what you would do is you would open up the file that this program generated. You'd copy and paste the information starting with the day field in the upper left-hand corner to the call sign field in the bottom right, and then you paste it back into the score sheet and hope you didn't get off by a line or something in one direction or the other. But at least it was a more automated way to deal with the problem of how to submit your log data, relatively easily. I realized that other people would be interested in this, and so I changed the input format from this text-based spreadsheet format to the ADIF format. So people who could export ADIF files from their logbooks could use this program to fill in their score sheet. In 2013, I had the brilliant idea to write a GUI-based version of this program. And the idea was to be able to have it read and write the score sheet directly and fill in the information itself without you having to cut and paste. So in my research, I had to look. I investigated different languages. The easiest way to do this was with a language called Perl, because they had a Perl module that you could use to read and write Excel spreadsheets. So the program would read in the blank score sheet. You would read in your ADIF file, parse out all the information in your ADIF file, and stick the correct information, the correct cells in the spreadsheet, and write the score sheet back out. Part of this, to do the graphical part of the program, I had to learn TCL/TK programming. A small hurdle, but it wasn't a big deal. The one thing that was sort of a little bit of a hurdle was Perl is an interpreted language, and there's the only way to really distribute this among people who didn't have the Perl interpreter in their computers was to be able to compile it, so that they could just install the program and run it without having to worry about any of that stuff. The compiler cost $200 at the time. It's no longer made. I don't know what year they stopped producing this compiler, and it made a really big file. The file was the program file itself was 6 megabytes to download. There's just the Perl just ended up creating a lot of overhead, but the program was functional. A lot of people used it. It did have to be updated annually, and that was sort of to there's a log submission deadline. I think it's 5 days after the end of the year, so I think you get till January 5th. But basically, it's to prevent people from using incorrect log data to submit for the calendar year. So it's possible that someone could have accidentally used their 2012 log, ran it with the 2011 program, and thought they had the right thing, but they didn't. So this decision at the time I made was just to produce a new version every year. So this is what the original GUI interface looked like, and I will show you in a little while how it compares to the current one. But there's fields for your call sign. All the information on the left is pretty much the stuff that gets filled up at the top of the score sheet. You can select your class, whether you want to submit as a single band entry or a single mode entry. And then you click on the ADIF log to select the file you want to import, your log file you want to import. You click on the score sheet button to select the unpopulated, the official score sheet that you download from the DX Marathon site, and then click on output file, which I think by default fills it. I think the output file name, I think is by default is your call sign. And then you click on the convert button and it spits the spreadsheet out. And this version actually didn't allow you to look at the spreadsheet. I fixed that later. There's a button that you could use to check for a program update. And if it did find an update, it would download the new program. And then when you exited this one and started it again, it would be the new version. And one feature that I added, which I thought was fairly useful at the time, I think it still is to have a drop-down list of call signs. So for example, I typically submit my father's log when he decides he wants to participate. You may have heard of W1JR, but I'll just get his ADIF file and I'll pick the arrow and just drop down. It'll pick his call, and then I'll fill in all of his information. So his name, his street, his city, all that's saved in a file so that the next time you run the program, you just pick the call sign you want, and all the information for that particular call sign will be filled in automatically. So that's a lot, to me, that was a lot better than having to type in, if you wanted to do two different submissions, you have to type in manually the call sign and the name and all that information separately every time. It was tricky getting that to work right. So fast forward another 5 years or so, and I had enough, I guess, enough experience with Windows, graphical Windows programs based on other things I'd worked on that I decided to rewrite this ADIF conversion program for the marathon from scratch yet again. So now it's the third attempt at this. I've learned a lot the last two times. It was developed using the Microsoft Visual C environment, and since I had enough experience with other applications, it was pretty easy to get the graphical part up and running pretty quickly. Again, there was no easy way to read and write the Microsoft Excel format that was built into the environment that I had. And so another $200 later, I was able to purchase a library that had a number of functions for opening the spreadsheet, modifying cells, writing them back. And I also had to learn the Microsoft Windows API to be able to download program updates. So that was so you have to basically go to the website, and you have to connect to the website, and then you check the data on the file that's up there, then check the data on the file that you have on your local computer. And if one of the website's newer, then it asks you if you want to download the new version. And then when you restart the program, and you have to move some things around a little bit, but when you restart the program, you get the new version. So that actually makes updating for most people really easier than having to manually download and reinstall the program every time. The program file that resulted from this was about 125 kilobytes, which is about 2% of the size of the original 6 megabyte program. So it was a huge saving in terms of downloading the executable, the program for running it. And I took out the restriction about it having to be updated annually, but you will find that as soon as the calendar flips from January 5th to January 6th, that the program will only accept QSOs made in the current calendar year, and it will no longer accept QSOs made in the previous calendar year. So this is what the new layout looks like. You can compare it to this one. There's sort of similar. The left-hand side is again the boilerplate information. The right-hand side is the category and the logs and whatnot. When you enter in the formula class in this particular event, you need to include a description of your antennas. In this program, I believe when you click on the convert button in this version, I think when you click on the convert, if it recognizes that your formula class, you'll get a pop-up box that'll tell you to make you fill in all this information. Again, that's saved for the next time, so you don't have to type it in again. In this one, you just type it in on the screen, and it's there. And you click on the convert button, and it'll report how many countries it wrote to the output file, how many zones. And then there's a button you can click on called View, which will show you the result. And it looks something like this. This is my log actually from this year. I didn't show the whole thing, obviously. You wouldn't be able to read it, but you can see the first few QSOs are filled in. Some of them are, I started that there's probably a lot, probably at least half of them digital, I'm guessing, but I don't know for sure. But you don't really have to do anything now. All you have to do is submit the score sheet to the official website, and you're done. There's basically nothing to do at this point. You probably want to review it and make sure everything looks copacetic, and make sure that it didn't miss any countries that you thought you worked, or give you credit for things you didn't work, but you can go back and look at those later. So this program has a number of features. It'll filter by the calendar year, which means that you can basically give it your whole logbook from when you ever started operating to today, and it'll only look at the entries that are appropriate for the current calendar year. And all the entry information, like I was talking about before, can be recalled just by selecting the call sign. You select the call sign, all that stuff gets filled in automatically. And it only is, the important thing to remember about this program is that it only uses information that's included in the ADIF file. So the ADIF file has to tell you for each QSO, it has to give you a numerical DXCC code and the CQ zone. And there's lots of logging software out there. For example, some people use a general logger mode or the write log contesting software. And if you export that ADIF file, it doesn't have that information. So you have to be using a program that will actually generate ADIF records with that information included in it. And there's a quirk of this this program, the DX Marathon program, that it uses the same country list as the CQ Worldwide DX contests. And those contests actually include 6 additional entities, which are a part of the Worked All Europe list. And it would take me probably an hour to explain the origin and how this is all determined. But basically, these call signs would typically be identified in your log as whatever the default call sign is. So for you on VIC, which is the International Center in Vienna, would probably be identified in your log as Austria. And the QSO with the Shetland Islands would be identified as Scotland, and the QSO with Sicily, IT9, would be identified as Italy. So this conversion program will actually look at the call signs that are known to be in these particular areas and try to give you credit for them. The easy thing about Shetlands, the Lampedusa, Pantelleria, Sicily, Bear Island, is that they are all islands, and they all have what's called an island on the air reference number. And so if that is information in your logbook, it makes it easy for this program to identify that those are those particular entities. The other thing the program does, it cross-references against a list of known pirates and busted calls. If you go to the DX Marathon website, you will see a link at the top called Resources. And underneath that link, you'll see there's a page having to do with busted call signs, a separate page having to do with busted DX spots. Some guys will just click on a DX spot, not recognize that the call sign is incorrect, stick that in their logbook and be done. And then they'll find out later that when they run this marathon conversion program, that call sign was on the list of known bad calls. And so they might want to, so the program will actually skip that call in the log and look for another call with that same country. So it prevents you from accidentally entering these bad call signs for credit. It's got a one-button update, and it's got really a lot of extensive error checking. There are required fields like I don't remember. It's hard to see in the screenshot, but I think the required fields are in bold text. Things like call sign, name, address, email address. I forget what else is required. But those are required fields. If you accidentally don't type them in, don't fill them in, and try to convert, the program will say, well, this missing field, the city town is a required field. You have to go type it in before you can actually do the conversion. And as I mentioned before about the ADIF format, so I showed you an example of a QSO that had both a band field and a frequency megahertz field. And this program will actually identify cases where the band does not match, is not appropriate for the frequency. So if you see a QSO on 7.040 megahertz and the band says 30 meters, the program lets you know that something's wrong. And especially if you're operating one of the single band categories, this is going to be important. It also lets you know that there's something wrong. So if you want to go back and fix your logbook, this is a way to find out the information how to do it. Some other kinds of error checks. I'm trying to think what some of the other ones are. You can't name the output file can't be the same name as a score sheet. There's all The other thing it does is it converts the mode. So the modes here is accept CW, phone, and digital, and there are a number of modes in the ADIF spec like FT8 and RTTY, which are digital modes. This program has to figure out what the mode in your logbook does it correspond to a CW mode, a digital mode, or a phone mode. For example, I believe slow scan TV is considered phone. So if you have a slow scan TV contact, it will enter single sideband as or phone is the mode for that. So it does a lot of things, a lot of stuff that you don't have to, that takes the drudgery out of doing these submissions. I think that's about all I have. All the software is on my website under the link 81c.us/software. Each of those pages has an I don't know a sample here, but extensive kind of how to use the program, examples of what it does. And if a lot of these programs, for example, this one here, if you click on the help button down here, the help button will actually go to the web page that's appropriate for the program. So if you forget what something means or how to do something, you click on help, you've gone back to the website, and now you can probably figure out what you fill in the missing information for yourself. That's about it. My website's 81c.us. My email address is there. When this presentation is posted on the net, you can go and if you need to contact me for some reason or want to just look around, I have travel photos and everything else on my website if you're bored and the conditions are bad or whatever. So that's pretty much all I had to present for tonight. I'm happy to take questions or whatever.
Well, first I need to unmute myself. Thank you very much. That's been good. Can you down your desktop, please?
Oh yeah, but sure. Let me how do I?
Okay, I don't see any hands up. Dave made a comment, and Dave knew
there we go. Okay.
His experience in doing some of the neat fun things you were doing in county crossing. Is there any looking for hands up, folks?
I don't know how to do that either.
Well, down at the bottom of your screen,
yeah,
here's the thing called reactions, and in that thing you can, and you can raise your hand there.
Now, also about county hunting in the late 80s, late 70s, early 80s, my father, W1JR, got involved in it. And about 4 of us drove out to the Central States VHF conference from Massachusetts to Rapid City, South Dakota. I think it was Rapid City, Sioux City, South Dakota. Probably Sioux City, South Dakota. And on the way, he actually ran counties on the way out and the way back. So I got exposed to that a little bit. He did actually eventually complete the award. And unlike me, he actually submitted all the confirmations for the certificate. I had never had time to submit everything. I have worked all the counties on CW and sideband, and I've got over 2,000 logged on digital right now. So I'm still pursuing the thing as I go along. It's just I don't have the time right now to go through organize 300,000 cards and have someone look them over and do make it easy for them. So hopefully when I retire, I'll have time to do that.
You're going to retire real soon, so that'll be taken care of.
Exactly. That's one of the things that's on the top of the list.
Okay, I don't still see any hands up. Nothing's in chat. This has been a great presentation. Appreciate it very much. You please send the slides to me if you would.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, and we'll get this thing out on YouTube and see what kind of pileup we get on it out there.
Yeah, and one other thing I forgot to mention too is that if you have a specific need for some sort of a point program, let me know. And if it's something that I have either in my library or that I've done something similar before, I can probably adapt whatever I have today to do what it is that you need. So that offer's out there, especially if it's related to ADIF or any of this stuff. So
do me a huge favor, because I can't remember my name from one moment to the next. Send me an email.
Okay.
And we'll get that. We're always looking for people that want to do that.
Okay.
Got your hand up. Go ahead and take it, sir.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask you if you have any experience importing old paper logs from pre-computer days
Oh,
into electronic form, because I'm going to undertake that. I'm wondering if you use any sort of optical character readers and do conversions. If you've done any of that or have any recommendations. And
that's a really
again,
good
thank you.
question. That's a really good question. So between when I graduated from college and when I got married and we bought our first house, I had about you see the 10 or 12 years of basically no radio time. There's a few stations I actually went to for operating contests and whatnot, but I had a lot of downtime. So that was a good time for me to take my 6 handwritten logbooks and type in all the information and get a head start on the computerized logging. I realized that when I got active again in 1990, actually it was 1997, so 11 years. When I got active again in the fall of 97, I realized I don't want to be doing this by hand anymore. And that's when I really went full 100% speed into the electronic logging. I have no paper backups. Oh, that's another subject I'll talk about too quickly. So no, I don't have any experience with optical character recognition. If you so I don't have a program to recommend, but if you do it, you will have to basically compare what was scanned to what's on the paper and make sure that everything is correct. I don't know of any way to error check that other than doing it by hand, by visual inspection. And
Misery finds ways of doing it better. Sound like it will come about. Anthony, go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, and then
Yes.
just to follow up too is one quick way of entering the QSO data is if you want to just enter it, in sort of a plain old text format to make it easy on yourself. Call sign, comma date, comma time, comma frequency or band, comma RST send, whatever information you want to include, and then that text format could be relatively easily converted to some format you could import. It's probably more work than optical character recognition, but because you still have to go and cross-check everything. But again, there's more than one ways to skin the cat, but none of them are very easy, unfortunately.
Getting the cat to wholesale long enough is a okay. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, Dan, a couple things. First of all, I wasn't able to be here because I was on the train. And I wanted to thank Jim for all the work he's done. I've used many of his programs many times, and I really appreciate all that. With the question that just came up, though, there's a program called Fast Log Entry, FLE by DF3CB.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
I just put it in the chat, the link to that. It's very similar to what Jim was talking about. It's just a really stripped down program, and then you can import it with as an ADIF into almost any logging software. The other thing you want to check too is if you're actually entering it via one of the logging programs, a lot of the programs have a non-real-time option that you can turn on. That
Right.
way it won't keep trying to record the date and the frequency from your radio at that time. It'll let you just type it in. So if you're the FLE is a good place to start, but if you are using a regular logging program, make sure you find out whether it has some sort of either fast entry method or non-real-time method to use.
Exactly, and I think I mentioned casually at one point about not having a paper backup of my logs. So one thing that I've sort of been pretty good on early from the beginning is making electronic backups of all the stuff, all the work I do, including logs, financial data, all that stuff. You can never be too safe, and I have 2 ways of backing up. I have a local external hard drive here, which I back up nightly. And I'm also use a cloud-based service to back up over the cloud whenever files change. And the local drive is good if you have to recover a whole bunch of stuff very quickly, because if you're backing up on a cloud-based service, it may take a day or a week to get them to send you the data or have access to that a big amount of data. The cloud service is good in case your house burns down and now you've lost your computer, your local storage, external storage drive, and everything else. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have backups of stuff. My log is redundant. It's on 2 different computers. It's backed up in a cloud side on 2 different external hard drives. So the chances of me losing my log at any given point in time is pretty slim. But I would encourage you to all look into some sort of a way to back up data that's important to you, because there's no way to recover it otherwise. And you'll be heartbroken if it's important, even if it's family photos or whatever. You're not going to be a happy camper if you lose that stuff.
After years of field service, I can tell you lots of stories about that kind of stuff. Dave, you want to talk about your back blaze, please?
Yeah, I've been using Backblaze for many years as an offsite backup, and what's nice about it is that for I think it was $50 a year, but I think maybe they just raised the rate slightly for a single machine with all local drives attached to it, unlimited data backed up off site. And what's nice is they have a website interface so that if you lose a couple of files or a handful of files, you can go up there and immediately pull them down. You don't have to wait. On the other hand, if you lose an entire drive full of files, which happened to me once, I had an external USB drive with 50,000 photos on it, a 4 terabyte drive, and it went down on me and it was backed up. And so what you do then is you essentially send off to Backblaze, and they will send you like a 8 terabyte drive that's encrypted, and you get charged like $80 or something to have the drive shipped to you. And then if you return it within 30 days, they refund it. So you're only out the return postage. So it's a really good deal. I find it is very good, and it has saved my bacon a couple of times.
Yeah, I also use Backblaze, and in fact, they're semi-famous for their quarterly reports on drive failures, and they have tens of thousands of hard drives in their server for storing data, for storing people's data. And every quarter they report on which drives, which brands, and which particular models have actually had the most failures. So
Yeah.
in some respects, you can use that to guide your decision as if you need to buy a new hard drive. It'll maybe drive you toward one brand over another based on the failure rate. They've started doing the same thing on solid state drives now too, which is also interesting. So I tend to read those reports, and there's always usually something interesting in each one.
Yep.
Okay, lots of good information. I like these things. That's lots of good information there. Okay, I don't see anything more in the chat. Everybody go check your chat before we go away here, because there are some links in there you might be interested in. I don't see hands up. Are there any comments?
I'm not sure if Jim mentioned the county program that he has in his software, but I use that after every state QSO party so I can convert the county abbreviations into data that the ADIF files will recognize.
Yeah, I did talk about that one specifically.
Good. I'll be watching the whole thing when I post it this week.
Yeah, what I realized today is that I went to grab a couple of screenshots of that program, and it turns out that the field that RightLog, the ADIF field name that RightLog used for the Arizona QSO party is different from what my software expected. So it didn't convert anything, and I had to go and modify that real quickly and rerun it. So there's always something to change, always something to fix. Software never ends.
Keeps you young. Okay. Well, this is wrapping up right at the top of the hour, which is unusual. Thank you, guys, everybody. Thank you, Jim. It's been a great presentation. And we'll over it one more time. Make sure everybody's got a question, a comment, whatever it might be. Speak up now, because I'm going to pull the plug.